Okay, James Irwin says, not really questions. These look like topics you might like to address. Uh, Possible Gavin Newsom takeover, tax increase, refugees. Water control, drain the Central Valley to coastal. Overflowing hospitals with drug abuse, walk-in flooding ER with family medicine. MS-13 and missing military machine guns and radical California state government. And collapse of Central Valley cities and real estate. Semper Fi. Semper Fi to you, Robert. I'm sorry, James. Semper Fi to everybody. Always faithful to what is the right thing to do, even when no one's looking. So James's questions seem to be really focused on California. Yeah, California's in a bad position. The state government is radical. The legislature and the governor are radicalized. The judicial is radical. And California's not the worst. It's among the worst. You've got Illinois, you've got New York, you've got other states that are just chock full of these communists painting themselves as Democrat or progressive or socialist. The fear with them, and then even in very conservative states, there's radical leftist governments, city governments. You know, they're all problems. They can be a problem in Shit It's the Fan. As we get closer to Shit It's the Fan, yeah, you know, there's huge issues. That's why we need to be ready now. We need to be aware that Shit It's the Fan doesn't have to be worldwide. It doesn't. It doesn't have to be worldwide. It can be regional. It can be the South or the East Coast. It can be the Midwest, Upper Midwest. It can be the West Coast. Right? It can be the state of California. It could be Arizona, New Mexico, for all I fucking know. Right? But it could also be not just regional, but rather city. There could be Shit It's the Fan in cities where these radical, anti-freedom, anti-liberty, communist types, because of economic hardship, supply issues, cyber attack, those radicalized areas could tighten the screws and declare state of emergency, suspension of Constitution. All kinds of problems can erupt from that. Right? Who's going to like that the most? Well, he mentions MS-13 here. Groups like MS-13 thrive on institutional chaos, that is government failure. At that point, you end up dealing with who has the most might, because might makes right. So if MS-13 is out there and they have aspirations to, say, run the LA Basin or the San Francisco Bay Area or portions thereof, they may have enough firepower to do that if government forces, government law enforcement doesn't have the resources to deal with them because they've got their hands full with the rest of us. In other words, the government may surrender portions of the country to regional, territorial, or city issues. I don't want to call them a government, right? Occupiers. However you want to put it, the fucking Taliban, I don't know what you want to call them. But let's just say MS-13 took over the East Bay, Oakland. The government's got its hands full with other Shit It's the Fan, other issues and emergencies. What they'll do is they'll just abandon Oakland, take care of their other problems, and say, we'll get back to Oakland later. If you live in Oakland, or somewhere in the East Bay, or close to it, you may say, well, thank you very much, motherfuckers. Right? Thanks for abandoning us. And if you're that guy that says, thank you very much, which actually means fuck you very much, you're going to have to take your life into your own hands. Your own security, your own everything. Shit hits the fan. Hot spots. You know, prepping isn't just being able to build a fire. It's not just the ability to set a trap and catch squirrels to supplement your other food. It's everything. The potentials, unfortunately, are endless. So when we first start, yeah, I need to get some food, some water, figure out my shelter or my bunker or my bug out location. I need to make sure I have the appropriate clothing, the appropriate self-defense, build a group. It goes beyond that, and it starts encompassing or taking into account all of the potentials. Now, the problems are caused, literally every fucking problem is caused by government failure. When government fails, they make bad laws and act badly. And that can affect food, transportation, security, or rather peace. You lose peace right now. Peaceful environment. Memorial Day, been thinking about what that means. This can be interrupted in a moment's notice. Shit, it's the fan. It could be just my area, it could be the state, it could be the region, it could be the whole country, it could be the whole fucking planet. Right? But as we get closer to it, as more bad shit happens, because I'm not reporting to you all the good things, like, oh yeah, we solved the financial issue. Oh yeah, we solved the monetary issue. Oh yeah, we solved the social issue. You're not hearing those stories from me because that's not fucking being done. Nothing is being solved. All they're doing is putting their heels in the ground, the government, and trying to maintain control of what exists. They're trying to maintain control of the immigration and terrorist potential. They're trying to maintain and organize control over the deep state operatives. They're trying to maintain and control diplomacy. No longer is it, or we're doing this to improve the world. They're trying to do everything in order to keep collapse from happening. That's where we're at. That's my opinion. You may have a different opinion. You're welcome to it. As for me, I'm fully fucking prepared and I'm thinking about everything. There's potentials. I hate it when my nose itches. There's potential for everything. So you get all your preparations in order. You start thinking about your plans and you start thinking, I don't want to get caught off guard. You start thinking about the potentials from the macro, the whole world, down to the micro. When shit hits the fan, we really are into the micro. Your world. Is there a military base in your world, which is a 10-mile radius? And it's 20 by 20 miles, basically. That's 400 square miles. That's a lot for you to understand and take into account in a world where you can only walk to get there. So what's in that world? Military bases, a lot of government. Are you in a major transportation corridor? Are you in an area that has resources that are valuable to our government, state, local, federal? Do you live in an area that has resources that are valuable to foreign nations? You know, and that's important on the coastal areas. I'm really not worried about the Canadians invading America. I am worried about what could happen on the southern border. Not that I'm afraid of Mexican people. I'm afraid of, I'm not really even afraid because I'm so far north. If I lived on that southern border like backcountry prep, I would be a little more concerned. All of those Arizona militiamen, I'd be concerned. All of everyone on the southern border. Because there's a contingent of Mexican radicals that believe that the lower western United States still belongs to Mexico. And if we get into a shit it's the fan situation, they may try and move north. There's enough of them here. And I'm not talking about the good people. I'm talking about the bad people. So, I guess James Irwin's not really questions turned into some good topics to discuss. And I know this video is going long, and I'm not going to break it into two parts, or maybe I will. Fuck, I don't know. It's important to think, as James has discussed. He's brought up several points having largely to do with California and the West Coast area. But you can do the same thing. Rather than ask a question, you could just say, these are topics, and how will they affect us when shit hits the fan? So well done, James. Chris C. says Semper Fi, and I want to say Semper Fi to Chris, another Marine. He was a pilot, ATP fixed-wing helicopter, helo, as well as a paramedic. He let his paramedic license expire, and I can no longer fly due to health reasons. Sounds like Chris is one of us older guys. I feel that my experience in these fields can be useful post-SHTF. Every skill you have is useful in post-SHTF. Whether it's finding and sanitizing water, gardening, flying fucking helicopters and shit. I mean, airplanes are hard enough. Helicopters are even more difficult and skilled, right? Avionics is a field that's becoming more and more technical. Understanding how these aircraft operate. You know, it's something that is valuable, but it may not end up when shit hits the fan as something you can use. Or, on the other hand, it may. You just don't know. Do I have any pilots in my group? No, I don't. Do I wish I did? Yes, because I believe people that are pilots have a high mental acuity. They have the ability to learn. They're physically coordinated with their mind, right? In other words, I think of them as more intelligent and therefore more capable and competent in dealing with other issues. It's just the way it is. People that are not competent, incompetent, incapable, unwilling to learn, that's right where they're at, and they're not preppers. So people that we meet as preppers probably have a flexible mindset, and they're going to bring a skill base. Okay. And he writes, you know, if I can get to a local airfield, I can steal an airplane or helicopter for recon or other needs. That's a potential or could happen. At the same time, Chris, you know, I would hate to see you think you're going to reconnoiter some aircraft and you end up getting shot for it. Because if anyone has an operating aircraft with fuel, they're probably going to be guarding that as a very valuable asset. You know, at the same time, you know, it's a good skill to have. It's good to know it's there, utilized. You could also end up with an airfield that has nothing but planes and no one to fly them. Right. I'm hoping that these skills will be valuable enough along with our preps. Yes. Right. He wants to ensure the survival of his wife and himself. Right. Having these skills, having the experience as older folks is going to be very valuable. You may not be able to run 10 miles without stopping and dying. I don't know if I could run 10 miles anymore. I know it hurts for me to run a mile. My legs hurt. Can I do it? Yes. Do I like doing it? Fuck no. Right? Do you have these skills? Yes. You know, how can they be implemented when shit hits the fan? I don't know. It's as the situation applies. What I can say is having a variety of skills makes you more valuable because we don't know what potentials will come up. So, there it is. You know, experience and skills is going to be a huge deal. Especially when you weigh that against people that have no skills, no ability, right? They're lazy, they're out of shape, right? They don't know what it's like to have run, 5 miles or take a 20-mile forced march in a day. They don't know that. They've never experienced it. So they don't know how to do it. The how to do things. And you would think, doing 20 miles on foot in one direction, that doesn't take any skill. In truth, it really does. You need to understand health, hydration, physical conditioning. You're only as fast as your slowest people. There's a lot to take into account, and that's where I think that experience is invaluable. And by the way, this is just a fabulous cigar. Kevin Huff commented, one of my favorite Murphy's Laws is, every man has a scheme that will not work. This is funny. My stepdad, his nickname was Murphy, over Murphy's Law. And it was, if anything can go wrong, it will. So, I like to consider myself well prepared. I have many schemes that will not work. I've got a ton of schemes that won't work. But he goes on to write, tied to that is Canadian Prepper. And I like Nate. He's a good guy. Every now and then we exchange emails. He's a terrific gentleman with a lot of integrity and a lot of training, and he really looks towards the physical side of prepping, not so much the conflict side. I don't know if it's because he's Canadian or the region he's in, but a hell of a guy. Maybe if I'm lucky enough, I'll meet him before I die. I'd like to meet all of you guys before I die. You know, so many people to meet, so many drinks to share, so few time, so little time. So he says, Canadian Prepper had a scenario that people voted on. Problem was, all of the choices probably left you dead. How many people have a shit it's the fan plan that will most likely leave them dead? I'm going to say there's an awful lot of us 5% preppers that have a plan that will leave us dead. I have a plan. Shit, I have several plans right now that will leave me dead. My group dead. My kids dead. I do. I know that my plans will leave me dead. In fact, every plan I have will leave me dead. And you're probably thinking, John, you really did have 3 shots of rum in that fucking rum and coke that I'm going to finish right now. But let me explain. How many people will have a shit it's the fan plan that will most likely leave them dead? Most likely. Leave them dead, most likely leave them dead. Every single plan. Unless, this is the caveat I will throw on. Your plan will leave you dead. Every last single one of them. If you make a fucking mistake. Your plan will leave you dead. Unless you are well-trained and well-informed enough to make alterations to the plan. That is, improvising and adapting in order to overcome a situation. It's a great comment by Kevin. Great question. It's a great scenario. Every plan is no fucking good because there's going to be a hitch in the get-along somewhere. There's going to be a catch. There's going to be a fork in the road. And you have to see it and recognize it for what it is. You need to be able to improvise, understand the mission, understand the objective, understand the obstacles, understand the threats, understand your strengths and your assets, deal with what is out there. That is why I say it's important to know the whole world, what is going on in D.C., in your state capital, diplomacy, military crap, everything. It's good to know all that. But when shit hits the fan, you need to know what's going on in your neighborhood. Right? You need to know what's going on in that 10-mile radius. That basically 20 by 20 square you live in. Who is there? What are they going to do? What are their motives? Right? If it's just people and they just want to survive, basic self-defense. Right? It just depends, and that's why you need to understand your specific environment. Period. Have a plan, but also be able to improvise, to do your very best with the situation. You can't go into anything and say, this is the cookie cutter, and we're going to stay here and perform it to our death, because that just might be what happens. Okay, that is why that is so critical. Right? And again, you might be the leader of the group. You might. You might be part of the committee of leadership. You might be the first mate, the second in command. You might, you don't know. What you want to do is have the experience in your group, the knowledge base, and the understanding of your area, so that, right, you stand the best chance of surviving these scenarios. Or, as the Canadian Prepper and Kevin put it, right, choices. Shit it's the fan choices that can leave you dead. And there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee I'm going to make it or anyone else. Right? There's no guarantee the President of the United States will survive shit it's the fan. Right? How does that go? The best laid plans of mice and men. But you do your very best, and that's all anyone can hope to do. Oh man, I had a nose itch, and I went through the last question, and I didn't have the camera turned on. This is horrible, horrible, because Corey asked the question. This is the last question. What are the scenarios you see as people hide in forests and off dirt roads and shit hits the fan? I just went through the whole thing and realized the camera wasn't on, so this is screwed up. What Corey's talking about is people hiding in forests, bugging out. Bugging out. What do they want to do? They see their area as so threatening, so negative, so full of trouble that they want to leave. They want to go out into the country, out into the forest, into a rural area, away from where they're at, out into the swamps, whatever. It's a great plan if you see where you're at as a bigger threat than going out there. Now, a family, every contingent, every portion of a prepper group, they can put inside a pickup truck or a SUV a year's worth of food for 4 people. Every truck can carry an arsenal in self-defense, the ability to purify water, to have enough clothing and tents or housing available, or where they're going is they've got a bunker, a house, a region, a zone waiting for them. The problem with that, there is a problem. The good thing is you've gotten away from the city. The bad thing is, how many other people have that same idea, that same concept? So you could look on the map and say, where I'm at is bad. We've got to leave. We're going to bug out. So we're going to hide in the country, at this country location. So you look on the map, and 50 miles away, there's a lake, or there's a river in an area that's popular for camping or well known to be secluded, right? Safe. The problem is these types of places are well known. So the question is, how many other people know about these places? Even if it's private property, what are you going to do? Stand up and say, hey, this is private property. I bought it 5 years ago. Get the fuck out of here. No, they're gonna want to be there too. So not only will you fish out and hunt out all natural resources for food, you just have an issue of a lot of people in that area. You know, will they want it as much or more than you? Now you've got a conflict of people who are preppers or part-time preppers in their head. They just thought, let's go there, but they brought their guns and what they think is important. So now rather than having a populated area full of dense people and a few dangers, now you got an area that's populated primarily by dangerous armed people. So let's assume that the area where you're hiding, because Corey says where people hide out in the country, out in forests and on dirt roads, let's just say 1/3 of them are well prepared, well planned. They're in the same area as you. They've got food and weapons and they're going to last a while. The other 2/3 are going to be people who have just decided to bug out, have limited preparations, limited food, limited ammunition, limited resources, limited skills. Those people that are limited are going to run out of one thing, and where are they going to go to make up for it? They're going to go to other people, potentially, either out of necessity or because they are nefarious. They're bad guys. They've got the idea, I'm going to bug out and then I'm going to screw everyone else over and steal their shit. That's the problem with bugging out, as far as I see it. Is you're bugging out and other people know about this stuff. They know about these areas, right? So whoever gets there first, they're best suited to establish themselves in an area. At the same time, other people are going to show up, and maybe they've got enough food to last 2 weeks or a month, 2 months, but eventually everyone is going to run out. I will eventually run out of prepared, stored food, right? But the idea is to know and understand, well, I better start growing food. I better find a way to get more, right? Am I going to an area, or am I in an area that has an agricultural base or capacity to produce? This shit is the fan. If we go to that type of scenario where it's that bad, it can happen. If you've got a bug out situation, you don't know if it's going to last 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks. Nobody really knows how bad or long it'll be. But so if you bug out to a remote location, or what you consider to be a rural location, odds are other people are going to be there with you, right? now you go from a scenario, say in your township, your city, your suburb, where you know the 10-mile square around you, or 10-mile radius, and you know the type of people that are there. At least you know what's there and you can deal with that better than going to a remote area, bugging out. I don't want to use the remote, let's use the word rural. Into the country and the forests. You know the area as far as its geography, but you don't know who is showing up. You can make some assumptions about them. They're preppers to some degree. They're armed to some degree. They've got food that'll last them for some time. But you are now in an area with people who have a better idea of what Shit Hits the Fan might offer or entail. At the same time, if they're not fully prepared, now you've got a lot of Shit Hits the Fan warriors who are desperate, who are going to be looking for others. So bugging out may be your best option because your area is going to be a fucking war zone, and in your area there is no food. Right, so it may be your best plan, but understand that if you do go to a bug out location, if someone does it with the food they can carry on their back and they think they're going to live off the land, that's a hard thing to do, especially when you're competing for resources like food and water and good places to shelter. Right? In the city, there's going to be a lot of fires, a lot of smells, a lot of death. Out in the country, there may be less of that, and as a result, people can find you easier. So everything has its positives and its negatives. That's why I don't say you need to bug out, and that's why I won't say don't ever bug out. That's up for the individual person to do based on their skill, their preps, their area. Again, this whole concept, terrible, and I hope we only go into a Shit Hits the Fan light, but we could get something more dramatic. And again, let's go back to Murphy's Law, right? The best laid plans of mice and men, right? If something can go wrong, it will. Prepping is about understanding all those things that can go wrong and doing your very best to try and plan and prepare to counter that. Turns out I'm going to end up doing this as a two-part video, and you probably already know that since you've sat through two of them. But I want to thank you guys for superb questions, for supporting the channel, for caring enough about yourself, your family, your group, your community, your country, for caring enough to actually go through this exercise, the planning exercise, the preparing exercise. Because as far as I'm concerned, there's no way out of it at this point. It's going to happen. It's just a question of how bad it is and what flavor of shit sandwich are you going to get. Right? Will you have mayonnaise and mustard on that shit sandwich, or will it be a dry shit sandwich? Right? It's not good. No matter what, it stinks. It sucks. But we're all going to do our best to get through it and get out the other end. So thank you again for sponsoring us. Use the preparedmind.club, C-L-U-B.club. It's your resource. You guys fund it through your patronage and through shopping there. Ask questions, get answers, get prepared. Chance favors the prepared mind is yours. Godspeed, Semper Fi to all.